Welcome to Murky Waters, the seventh installment. And today here we have my longtime friend, Connor McWilliams.
Hello, hello. It's an honor to be on, buddy. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So how are you doing today on Sunday, the day of rest?
The day of rest.
Yes.
Not getting too much of it. I'm doing pretty well though these days, I'd say. Um, yeah, as far as today goes though, not too much planned for once, which is quite odd, I'd say.
Yeah. No kidding, huh? So I
Mhm.
know that you've previously mentioned to me that you're doing the welding right now. Is that what you're doing full time for work or
You know what,
what's
man?
going on?
I was into welding before, not too much these days. So how that came about was got into welding, and it's a great career, by all means. It's definitely a good one to go for. Went into school, it was a 6-month program to get in. Came out of there and immediately was jumping into a job making six figures, so that was pretty all right. And from there though, I love what I did, and I got to quite a high level, I'd say, as far as what we did, where we'd be making submarine components and airplane components and things of these sorts, right, where they are quite technical and quite detailed, involved, so to speak. But from there, I kind of just thought about my overall impact in the world. And I said, is this really something that I want to do? Is this the sort of impact that I want to make? Because truthfully, money's great, but wasn't changing too many people's lives, building these water cartridges for airplanes, stuff like that. So yeah, I have been studying finance for a little while now. Started out at Langara and transferred over to McGill just a couple of years back. And then from there, I just started, taking off with this finance thing, and it's going pretty well these days, I'd say.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, like, I'm pretty into finances myself. It's not by any means my career at this point in my life, but as a side thing and more so just for my own personal knowledge, then I'm always trying to learn more and read more and figure out what's going on with that, especially with the ever changing financial world nowadays, with all of the crypto and all that stuff. And like you see all over anything, whether it's UFC or soccer or anything, it's like you see crypto.com, their banners plastered everywhere now. And I mean, that's, I know it's kind of like a generic app to use, and that's what I use right now to get started. And
Yeah.
what do you feel about that, about
Well, getting
crypto? Is that
started
kind of your realm?
with crypto. So I think that that ties into a larger topic, which is actually decentralized finance, which is kind of one of the main things for crypto, right?
Sure.
I definitely see the world going that way with, things just all over becoming much more international. Um, but as far as crypto goes, I don't think it's too bad to play around with. I probably wouldn't throw my entire life savings into it, but
No,
you can definitely learn a thing or two. And I mean, I have friends that have made, tons of money in Bitcoin, stuff like that, but their risk tolerance is obviously a lot higher than majority of people. Saying that though, there are a lot of private firms that are now starting to open up these crypto ETFs and stuff like that, right? So that just goes to show if these big private financial institutions are starting to back these things, then, obviously there's going to be some sort of future involved in it, right?
of course. So you spoke about decentralized finance and how that's kind of like the broader spectrum of what cryptocurrency is. Do you care to elaborate on decentralized finance just for some people that may not know what it is?
So for those that may not know what decentralized finance, that's that those private firms, so to speak, they deal with things on a much greater scale. RBC you might only see in Canada. However, private firms such as Fidelity, for example, you'll see worldwide. They have asset management worldwide. So the entire idea behind decentralized finance is to take away that you know banking operation that would just be unique to that country, so to speak. A good example of that would actually be NFTs, non-fungible tokens, right? I'm not sure if you're familiar with them or not.
Yep.
Yeah, but yeah, NFTs. Since I'm going off a little bit now, so NFTs. I think they're great. As far as removing the middleman, I think it's a great idea. I wish there was more of that. You see that too in real estate, right? Realtors who are just making millions of dollars in today's world. I don't know if necessarily they've earned all of it, but they're out there making that money. So people are paying that, right? And they don't have a choice to not pay it. That's just the way society has made it.
I think it's a great idea, and I think that obviously that is the future and the direction that we're going in, is to be able to have the middleman cut out. Because I mean, I feel like it's like that for a lot of industries, though, not just finances. You want people want to pay less fees and have less people to talk to, and they don't want to have to go through another person to do something. Like even as something as easy as like buying stocks nowadays, like you don't need to go through a stockbroker. It's kind of like I don't want to say a dying industry, stockbrokers, but with the amount of information that's available just off of your cell phone, and like being able to buy stocks through like TD. Like I purchase my stocks through TD, and it's easy. You just go on your phone and you can look up any stock you want, and you can buy, sell, do it. Like you don't need a stockbroker. I mean, you could have a financial advisor, but that's different. That's paying for somebody's advice. That's not paying somebody to make a purchase for you. Like it's just, I think it's um I think it's stupid. I think you shouldn't have to pay someone else. I think that if you really want to get into the world of finances and stocks and crypto, I think it's to your benefit to educate yourself and be able to make those decisions, because it does make a huge difference with the amount of fees and stuff you're going to have to pay someone. With real estate is the same thing. Like why you should be able to buy and sell your own houses without the help of a real estate agent, but there you see it doesn't happen like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like I think that cryptocurrency, no particular currency, but I think cryptocurrency will probably be the main source of uh, currency, probably in the near future. Near as in like 20 years, not like 5 years. Like I don't think that physical money is going to be a thing anymore.
Hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. I think in a lot of I think it's great as far as first world countries go and stuff like that in regards to cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
I can see that transition happening, but I think for some of these other countries that people don't have access to the internet realistically everywhere around the world. Um, so it might take a bit more to make that full jump over. But yeah, something you mentioned was just, buying stocks and stuff like that. And I think that's a great idea. Like a lot of people our age, especially just hopping in, just getting involved, seeing, learning realistically as far as that goes. If you're benefiting yourself and you're teaching yourself something new every day, then hey, hats off to you. But as far as buying stocks goes, I think people oftentimes might get it twisted a little bit. So when you're thinking about buying stocks, a lot of people talk to me that, yeah, like I'm investing, I'm buying stocks and stuff like that. I sit down with people like this all the time. I say, yeah, but I mean, you do have to understand that when you're buying stocks, it's not really necessarily investing. It's more so doing active business because, you're putting in time, you're getting up early, you're looking at all these, financial forums, Bloomberg, and these types of things. And realistically, at the end of the day, investing in my eyes is just, you're putting money in, you're leaving it there, and you're not worrying about a tenant calling you in the middle of the night, saying that their fridge is broken down and now you got to go out and try somewhere, right?
Yeah,
Which
of
has
course.
happened to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think there are definitely people out there who maybe don't necessarily have the time to spend looking up stocks and stuff like that. And for those individuals, I mean, there's lots of different options as far as like ETFs, mutual funds, stuff like that go, right? But yeah, definitely for people, if you have the time to go and do this research and stuff like that, then go ahead and do it, because you'll get far greater returns than what you would. Sorry, I shouldn't say you will. You have the possibility to get far greater returns than what you would with dealing with a middleman, as we say, right?
Yes. I mean, with the whole, when in regards to time, it's like I think that you can make time. I think anybody can make time. I think that if you are willing to sacrifice your sleep or your TV watching after work or anything, whether it's, I like to do my productive stuff in the morning. Like I get up early. I get up at 4:30 every morning. Just, I don't start work till 8 a.m., but I get up at 4:30 because I need to get all of my stuff done and my workout and my readings and my finances and all. I need to get all of that done and stretch and do all of that, have my old man routine by 8 a.m. because I got a labor job. So by the time that I'm finished work at 4:30 and come home and make dinner, I'm tired and I'm not going to be productive. But some people are the opposite. Some people, for the life of them, they're not going to get up early in the morning. They're not going to be productive in the morning. So they kind of put it off until after work. And I mean, if you're sitting at a desk all day, you might not be as physically exhausted. So you can do it in the evening. But I don't know. I think I understand why people say they don't have time, but I can't really sympathize for people that say they don't have time and then don't get to a result that they want. Because I myself, I kind of just grind it and get it done.
Dude, definitely. There's people in this world that either, they'll find ways to make excuses for themselves. And everyone can find excuses, it's not a tough thing to do by any means.
No.
And then there are those people that just, once you start accepting responsibility and taking yourself down that path, okay, my finances aren't here because I'm not up at this time researching these things, then hey, that's when you're going to start making improvements in your life. And it's definitely just about hopping into that mindset. But to just go around and start changing everyone's mindset, it might be a little bit difficult, right? So
yeah, I'm not trying to change anyone's mindset, because like at the end of the day, I don't care. I don't care what other people choose to do with their life or spend their time or anything. I just like the way I look at the world and advancements and stuff is how it's going to benefit me and how I like it and how I can make more money or how I can make my life easier or get something. Or when I look at technologies like Tesla self-driving cars, for example, like I think it's cool. And I know not everybody's going to be on board with self-driving cars. And I'm not quite on board with it yet. I think it's still it is new. It's only been a thing for probably less than 10 years, the self-driving cars. And I know that that's the future and that's inevitable, that we're not going to be driving. Like I'm probably never going to have to renew my driver's license. Not renew, but I'm probably never going to get to the point where I'm old and have to get my license taken away, because I don't see me driving past like 50. I think it's all going to be automated by then. And how do you feel about that?
Automated driving.
I know you've always been kind of like a car guy, so you probably have some feelings about that.
Yeah, dude, definitely. So Tesla's definitely an interesting one to bring up. Massive company. And as far as automated driving goes, I think it's great. Obviously, growing up in Richmond, automated driving, man, let's do it. But there's definitely that aspect for certain people, such as myself, who just love to drive. And, it'd be kind of like taking away a hobby. Saying that, though, I mean, there's no reason why those individuals can go to a racetrack, but yeah, I don't know if people just want to race around all day. Another thing to think of too is things like motorcycles, right? Like what happens to these companies then if they just fully eliminate, having any sort of human control, then those companies need bailout. There's thousands of jobs just revolved around that alone, right?
Yeah, I think that AI is coming for everything. And that's for everyone's job and everything. And I think it's inevitable. How soon is the question? Because it might not be as soon as me or others think, or it might be even sooner. We don't know. I think that the whole COVID crisis kind of fast tracked a lot of things and fast tracked a lot of businesses that relied on human interaction. Like you see how many offices are closing down nowadays because everybody can just work from their home on their laptop, and businesses are seeing, why do we have to lease out this huge 10,000 square foot office when we can just send everyone home and they can work from their office and get the same amount of work done? So I think automation's coming. I think certainly for most labor jobs, automation is coming. And it's like, I don't know, I got mixed feelings about it, because at what point do you think that it's too much that machines are going to do for us? Like when you see all these sex robots and stuff too, Like at what point?
But you're not into
Seriously,
it?
no, I mean, it's weird. I feel like, I don't know, like, would that be cheating if you have a wife and you have your sex robot in the closet? Like, if she knows about it, like, it's not a person, but it's the same thing. Or would that be kind of like a relief? And wouldn't that be like, it might cause less actual cheating? Because like most of the time, if somebody's going to cheat, it's probably because of a sexual urge. And if you had that urge met by a robot, then would that kind of fix some of the problems that were there, or would that just open up a whole other kind of shit that would make everything worse?
I don't know. I think you'd see it on both sides, maybe open up a can of worms. So I think there'd also be people then that would just say, hey, there's definitely people out there who are just in it for, sex and stuff like that. So now
Yeah,
those people are just not hopping in relationships. They're dumping their money into a good sex robot. They're making that investment.
yeah.
Right. But I don't know. It's definitely an interesting topic. I don't know how the wife would feel about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Maybe I'll bring one home. Probably not.
It's one of those things that we'll just have to wait and see, I guess. Like, I don't know. I think it's weird. I think, have we learned nothing from iRobot and the Terminator?
Yeah.
Like that. I saw that new the demonstration for the Tesla robot, and it looks exactly like the iRobot robots. So it's
Yeah.
kind of weird, man. It's like I don't know when you start giving machines automation and artificial intelligence, that's scary. That's
Dude.
like, where's the line where they realize that they're smarter than us and don't need us? And
Yeah.
like, why are we trying to get there? I don't know. I don't get it. I don't want things to be done for me that bad. So how do you feel about that?
Yeah, man, for sure. I mean, definitely as far as the testing phase goes, especially if we're talking back about that sex robot, count me out for that.
Yeah.
I don't want to see something go wrong there. That wouldn't be a good day. But you're talking a lot about automation and stuff like that, particularly in welding. We've definitely seen that happening. When I hopped into the career, it's like your chances of robots taking over your job in the next 10 years. And it was like 93%. I was like, all right, sweet.
Sick.
Yeah, still went into it, but I was like, I'll just be that 7%. Saying that though, you go into these shops and they have these automatic robots, but at the end of the day, the people that usually operate them are people who have to be qualified in whatever they're doing, right?
Yes.
Like they have to know what's going to pass, what's not going to pass. So although, yes, there's a robot who's speeding up the process, there's still a man behind that who's, helping with that elimination process and finding those errors in those things. But I don't know, as far as that Tesla robot, I know you're talking about, 10 years ago, it couldn't really move too well. And then nowadays it's like hopping up and doing all these crazy things. I think they limited it too, as far as lifting restrictions and stuff like that and height. So yeah, that's not too bad. Maybe you'll like do something for the shorter individuals in the world as far as their confidence goes. If they start seeing, these short robots around, then they're really that tall.
Yeah. So you mentioned that even if there's robots and automation completing some of the tasks that we do nowadays, you mentioned in welding, there does still have to be an operator, at least for now. So does that kind of push an emphasis on people getting educated and learning how to kind of have sort of looking for one of the intellectual jobs that may be harder, that rather than a grunt worker? I feel so. Obviously the first ones to go are going to be the guys that work with their hands and not their brains, because that's the easiest thing to replace. So it does kind of, it closes a whole industry, but it also opens up another industry because you're going to need operators. So it opens up jobs, but it's going to get rid of jobs.
Yeah,
so
dude, definitely 100%. I agree with you fully. You're going to see a lot more programmers and stuff like that, at least as far as the welding industry goes. I can't speak on behalf of every single industry, obviously. But yeah, there's going to be people that don't necessarily think with their brains. And, I think regardless of what industry, those people can be easily replaced, as you said. But times are changing pretty rapidly. I mean, even back in, parents, grandparents days, it wasn't even a thought at that time, right? And nowadays it's just hopped into it. And same thing goes for, you ask a lot of people who are nowadays, they're not necessarily homeowners and stuff like that. And you say, oh, you've been in Canada for 40, 50 years. Why aren't you a homeowner, right? I'm sure it's at least crossed the path of, or what am I trying to say? Cross the people's minds, at least once, right? And even with my parents, right? And the truth be told is that these people, they saw a massive boom in the economy, and I'm sure they didn't expect that real estate would get as expensive as it has, just in the last 20 years or so. And that's only going to expand, with international travel, so long as there's not regulations put in place to stop foreigners buying places, right?
Yeah, of course. And that, I guess we see it more dramatically than anywhere else in the world, is foreign buyers purchasing properties and driving up the cost of living, because like it's ridiculous. They say that most young people won't own a house unless they get an inheritance or something like that, because it's so expensive. It's like, even, I mean, I live in White Rock. It's not quite as bad here as it is in Vancouver, but it's just crazy to think that the reason that housing is so expensive is because there's people coming from other parts of the world and paying ungodly amounts for it and driving the market up. Is that what's happening, or correct me if I'm wrong?
You know what? I haven't done too many studies. I did look at one the other day though, that was that I saw that said in 1996, approximately 90% of the luxury homes that were bought in the Lower Mainland were bought from, foreigners, and they were people who were actually claiming refugee status as well. But I think to say that, everyone here can't afford a house, I don't necessarily think that's true. I think, if people start young and start saving money, right when they get out of high school or finish university, then there's no reason why at some point in your life you can afford a home. But I think a lot of people just think, oh, I want a house here. And it's like, okay, well, the surrounding neighborhood might be 2.5 million. Let's start looking at other places first. And then maybe, you can sell that place and get into something else. And that's exactly what I did, right? It's you start leveraging yourself, you start utilizing your home equity line of credit to help with other real estate purchases. And eventually, you can actually look at buying something in the neighborhood you did. I don't think that, having to take all those steps should be something that people have to do. But for a lot of individuals, that's how it is, right?
Of course. And
Yeah.
as a guy that's really into finances, I know that you've previously mentioned to me that you've read a few of the Rich Dad, Poor Dad books. And in those, one of the main topics is debt, and good debt and bad debt. And what's your stance on purchasing real estate, especially if it's going to take up most of the money that you have? Whereas, like, say, for example, if your mortgage is 60 or 70% of what you make, like, yeah, you own a house, but at what cost? Are you going to eat rice and soggy wieners for the rest of your life and be what they call house poor? Or what do you feel? Do you think that it would be a good investment, or do you think that's something that you dump that money into a business or improving yourself, so in the future you can more easily afford it?
I think as far as you talk about a good investment, I think there's lots of other different avenues that one can explore, rather than purchasing a house for themselves, especially, that provide far greater returns, right? I mean, you look at some of the performances of ETFs, or, like I said, mutual funds, especially cryptocurrency. I mean, that's a bit more high risk, but yeah, you're asking about if I think it's a good idea to leverage yourself. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so leveraging in regards to that, I don't know if you know this or not, but 80% of people who leverage themselves actually experience troubles with that at some point. And a large part of that is due to the fact that most people who are implementing these strategies, are people who have or think that they have a lot of experience in this one area, but they don't necessarily understand all the risks that they're taking on. I think it's a great strategy. You look at some of these, millionaires, billionaires, stuff like that. And majority of them have taken on some sort of positive debt, as you're talking about, right? So I don't think it's a bad thing. I think if you're using it for, to expand your market, for example, Warren Buffett, I don't know if you're aware or not, but he's talking about how he made majority of his money. And he said, once I started leveraging these assets that I had, that's when my portfolio really boomed. But obviously, the guy's got pretty good brain
Yeah.
up there. So
No kidding.
probably knows what he's doing, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's, in regards to real estate investing, the funny thing is everyone, once you get into it, everyone says to leverage. Everyone recommends a BRRRR strategy, which for those who don't know, it's buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repurchase, right? And when you get into that refinance area, that's when you're going to start leveraging,
Yeah.
That's when you're expanding. You still have a mortgage out on something, but you're using whatever money you have in something and then putting it towards something else, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, there's definitely there's risk with that. Real estate is a more certain product that it's not, it does go up and down, but over time it will go up just because land is scarce, just has to happen, right? Unless the world catches on fire, which I don't know, after this summer, I think it might coming up here. But at that point, you probably won't worry too much about money anyways. So yeah.
I guess so. Yeah. The world lighting on fire. That was crazy. Hey, all of the fires and stuff here. I mean, it's nice that we finally got some rain to put some of that out, but that's nuts. I don't know what's called. I mean, I guess we kind of do know what's causing that. Did they? I can't remember what the numbers are, but they said that most of them were man-made by cigarettes and some of that crap. I know lightning. I saw some videos of lightning making some of the fires, but I don't think that that's the cause of most of them. So, like, I don't get it. If people keep seeing every year these forest fires happening and these warnings, like, but they're just carelessly chucking their cigarettes and just not giving a fuck. I don't get it. But like, I don't think that there's anything that you or I, or certainly the media, can say that is going to change those people's minds, because they clearly don't care. Like, if you can't put two and two together, you don't care. But is there, do you think that that's going to only get worse? Because I can't remember when I was younger there being all that smoke in the summer. I feel like that's something that's only happened recently.
Definitely, man. I agree with you fully. Like, I think there's no shortage of dumb people in the world. So, and I think with a population that's just expanding, it's only going to happen with a matter of time. But I don't know, in regards to pollution and that entire topic as a whole, it's a bit touchy. I think that, there's other places in the world that really are not doing anything, like China and India, stuff like that, right? But yeah, are you going to start implementing policies there? Probably not.
No, probably not. Hey, there's different standards for everything, whether it's money, politics, business, infrastructure, everything. Like, you see these videos of buildings and bridges and stuff in China, most specifically, that just kind of crumble all the time, whereas you don't see that as much here because of just like the standards. Like, I don't think that you have to go through as tough of a process to get approved to build something over there. I think it's kind of more just pop up. But yeah,
No,
I don't know.
You're right. As far as a Chinese standard, I can only speak to products that involve metals.
Of course.
But in regards to that, like when you're putting together cranes, when you're welding certain things, like yacht tanks, submarine components, like I said, they actually don't even allow, these Chinese metals, not only Chinese, but other countries, right? I mean, you're only talking about China, so that's why I mentioned. But they don't allow these just because, the contents inside that actual metal aren't to the what's the word I'm looking for? They're
standard.
Not, yeah, the standard that they're looking for. And if you're gonna put a crane together, like you can't use any sort of Chinese bolts. I remember they showed us this video when I was at work. I used to build cranes, and they showed us videos of cranes going wrong, and oftentimes it'd be the cause, and it'd be like, oh, this bolt head just broke off and stuff like that, and you'd see like multiple people dead and like
Yeah.
all these things everywhere, right? And you're like, dude, this is the worst advertisement for
I
this
know.
company I've ever seen. But yeah, from that, I guess our industries here have learned that maybe don't go ahead with these products.
No kidding. Hey, do you watch UFC? Are you into UFC fighting?
Dude, I love it, but if you're asking me about all the stats and like stuff like that,
No, 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 no. Did you watch? Do you know who Patty Pimblett is? Patty
no.
the Batty. You don't know him? Okay, we won't talk about that then.
Patty the Batty.
That's his name. Yeah, he's this guy from Liverpool, I believe, and he made his debut yesterday. And he talks all this shit. He's kind of like Conor McGregor, but he's from England rather than Ireland. And he just like was talking all this shit, and then he went in and starched the guy and knocked him out in the first round. And now he's talking even more shit. And like he blew up on social media. I think he had 40,000 followers last week, and then from just last night, he's up to I think 300,000 just after the one fight. So he's blowing up. But anyways, what was I gonna say?
That's funny though that he's from England. Actually, a little funny story about that. Like when I went to Ireland, you'd see even in the north there in Ireland, there's a lot of you know, beef, I should say, between the Irish people and the English people, right? And you'd go to these bars and these clubs in the north, and you walk around, they ask you for your last name, right? Obviously, once I would speak, they'd be, oh, this guy's not from here. I don't really care. But until then, it's just to determine whether you're a Protestant or Catholic. And like some of the bars that we had gone to, the wrong person had walked in. And one of them, I remember we had left. And then 4 hours later, we saw like a stabbing on the news just because this Protestant guy walked into an Irish bar, right?
Yeah.
And so I think if there were a fight like that were to happen, it would be crazy. Like, even in Belfast, I don't know if you know this or not, but they have a wall that still separates the city in half today. And
really,
half of the English people live on one side and half the Irish people live on the other side. It's massive. It's a huge wall. Closes at nighttime. All the houses that are just on the first line, like majority of them have been Molotov cocktailed, right?
So this is an actual physical wall, or is it like a border, like an imaginary line?
No, this is a physical wall. Like this is
really
a large wall that separates the city. Yeah.
That's just. And how long has that been there for? Is that like super long time or fairly recent? I mean, just like ballpark. Is that you've known your whole life kind of about that?
I would say around 60s, 70s, probably when England went into Ireland and started implementing certain laws that weren't really too favorable to the Irish people. But no, it's definitely, it's crazy to think. A lot of people think of Ireland as this amazing place to go travel, and you go to a place like Belfast where they have these like SWAT cars, and all the cops are like fully plated with machine guns, right? And you're like, whoa, did I step into a war zone? All the houses have 2 or 3 layers of fencing with barbed wire fence at the top, right?
Holy cow. And is that kind of is that in the whole city, or is that kind of just close to the wall?
No, that would be the whole city of Belfast. That's like that.
Wow. I never knew that. I had no idea of anything remote. Like I just thought it was just happy go lucky kind of everybody drink and have fun. I know that's kind of ignorant of me, but it's just like, that's what it's been portrayed as. And I've never thought to dig deeper than that. But that's crazy. And that's just solely based off of religion. And it's like 2 different, what's the term? Dialect is for language. What's the term for religions? Because I know that Christianity is kind of like the blanket religion, but it's Protestant and Catholics are kind of like a, I don't know, but it's kind of, they're coming from a similar spot, but they're divided, and it's very, very different apparently. And there's nothing quite like religion to divide the people or bring them together. I'm not religious myself, And like, I don't criticize anybody for their choice in believing in any religion, but I'm just speaking solely on what I see and how I see since the beginning of time. But nothing will start a war like money and religion. And
Yeah,
they're very intertwined with each other too. You can make a lot of money from religion.
definitely. I think religion, I don't know, it's a bit funny. Like, I'm not religious, I'm atheist. I grew up in a religious household. But as Ricky Gervais put it once, he was like, the only difference between someone who's not religious and someone who is, like, for myself, for example, I don't believe in 3,000 gods, but you don't believe in 2,999 gods, right? Like,
Yeah.
and that's all it is, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, it's pretty crazy hearing about what England has done to some of these places. Even for my family, like, the entire reason why we're in Canada is my grandfather went to the docks over in Ireland, and at the time England had taken over, and they wouldn't hire him because he was Irish. So it was either like starve to death or go somewhere else. So he did migrate over to Canada. And same thing goes for my mom. She's from Wales. Growing up, the English had taken over like the school system and stuff like that. So she wasn't allowed to speak her native language, which was Welsh. Like, she would get beat in class if she had spoken it. And so she told me for like the first few years until she knew English, she just wouldn't say anything in class, right? Because otherwise you just get beat, which is definitely a tough way to live, to say the least.
Wow.
But yeah, no, I think it's great to have other options, like to come to Canada, because you're seeing other countries, like, for example, Afghanistan, who people might not comply with that, and they don't really have the option to flee to other countries. Like,
No,
that's it. You're stuck.
it's so extreme what's going on over there. And like, I only know as deep as what's kind of on the news or videos that you might see on social media. Again, very ignorant of me, but that's why I won't make bold claims. But it's just crazy to see that they're kind of how easily they overthrew the government there. Like, I know I heard the numbers, and again, these are kind of just vague numbers, but I think it was like 300,000 Afghani soldiers were overthrown by 30,000 Taliban with no resistance. So I don't know. I just think something's a little fishy over there. And I know they don't quite have the same standards of politics and ethics that we might. Not that it's ethical politics where we are, but I mean, it's a little bit different, and it's quite extreme. And it's sad almost to see the videos of how desperate the people were to get on the planes to try to come back to America, that it was a better option for them to hang on to the landing gear of the plane when it took off and to fall to their death, or I don't think they thought that far. They're just like, if I stay here, I'm going to die. If I fly, maybe there's a 0.1% chance I'll go up with the landing gear, or I'll hang on for 20-hour flight, or whatever was going through their head. But it's just so crazy that they didn't think, and that was a better choice for them. And it really puts into perspective how grateful we should be to live in somewhere where, like, I know it's kind of like shitty right now with COVID and all that crap, but it really is a blessing. I've never known anything but this. I've never gone through real hardship. Obviously there's different degrees of hardship, but I've never gone through real hardship like those people have seen. And it's just, you really see it when you speak to immigrants that have come here. Like, I'm not going to name him, but I know this guy who's immigrated from Syria, and he's just like the most grateful person that you'll ever meet. And he got his citizenship, and all he cares about is the safety of his wife and kids. And he's told stories about how he's been, like, his home invaded by ISIS and all that stuff. And they're just like, he'll live the rest of his life and he'll just be forever grateful. He'll just work and pay his dues and go home and make dinner. And then there's us complaining about stupid shit like gas prices and weather, and whether or not we have to have a fucking vaccine passport when we go places. Like, life's not that bad. We're kind of like not babied, but it's like, I guess everything's relative. So for us, certain scenarios are terrible, but when you see people that come from third world countries, and they're coming here, and like just freedom is what they have. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And I respect the a lot of the immigrants that come here and what they've gone through, and that they're still nice. Like they're still happy and uplifting, and they're some of the nicest people. Like half of my family immigrated here from Iran. But yeah, no, it's crazy. And just like what you were saying about your mom, it was in England, correct? She's from Wales, but she moved to England or grew up in England.
No, that was in Wales that they still were.
Oh, that was in Wales. Oh,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
I never even knew that there was different languages, English and Welsh.
Yeah. And Gaelic for Irish, so there are all those other languages. But yeah, man, it's as far as those stories go, like for myself, grew up in low income housing. So we often see people, refugees from all over the world,
Sure.
would come here. And I think where we grew up, there's 40 housing units, and 27 of the families were from different countries other than Canada, right? So it's interesting to hear. And even one of the stories similar to yours, right? We had a family that had actually migrated from Afghanistan, and this was maybe 15 years ago, something like that, 20 years ago. And I remember just being a kid, and what had happened was their father was a journalist over in Afghanistan, and he had written just one, negative thing about the Taliban. And so they found out where he lived, and they were burning down his house, and they're, going to kill his family and stuff like that. So he just left the country that night, right? Didn't have anything.
Yeah, you just
came to Canada, like literally with a guitar and like one extra pair of clothing, right? And 4 kids, his wife, right? So chatting to someone like that, you're not going to be like, oh man, terrible weather we're having,
I know.
Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely a interesting topic. I don't know. Saying that though, I definitely would love to try traveling there, like, be an experience.
Like to Afghanistan?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a hot take.
That's
I mean, I could see why you would want to just experience that. I don't know if that would be my first destination. I'm not talking shit, but I just feel like there's a lot of other countries that I would go to first. But I could see what you mean, and I could see kind of the lure that a lot of people have, that they kind of just want to experience it for themselves. Maybe not now. Maybe just wait for it to calm down a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've never even traveled there. I've gone to the States, but other than that, I've never traveled outside of Canada.
Is there a reason for that?
Well, just no money growing up. But now that I'm an adult and I'm kind of in charge of my own finances, I was going to go on I was going to go to Jamaica last year, but then COVID. So I'm kind of waiting and seeing what's happening with that. But hopefully next year I can finally go somewhere. Like I've never been on a plane before. So yeah, I've never been on a plane.
What?
So yeah, I'm 25. I've never been on a plane. Crazy. So yeah,
that's crazy. Yeah, man, I can't even imagine. Yeah, it's definitely eye-opening to go to some of these places, right? Even for me, cultural shock definitely happened when I went to Thailand, right? Like suddenly you're seeing massive gaps between people who are wealthy and people who aren't, right? For example, they have one mall in Bangkok where it's a massive mall. All they have is every single luxury brand that you could possibly think of, like everything. They have a Ferrari dealership, Lamborghini dealership inside of the mall, right? And you literally leave the mall, and across the street will be like a kid who's walking around without shoes and a shirt, right? You're like,
yeah.
All right, man. I don't know if I could personally walk into, a mall and buy all this stuff and walk out and see a kid without shoes. Like I'd feel terrible.
Of course, there's morally it's wrong, and then there's also like for your safety, because you never know. Like those people, they'll rob you when you get desperate. Obviously, you do desperate things. So I don't know if that's a great idea. Having some huge, colossal cathedral of luxury in the middle, slap dab in the middle of some poor area. I just think kind of like it's like a slap in the face, and it's just you're begging for bad things to happen because you're kind of flaunting luxury and wealth in front of people that don't have it, have the basic necessities. But yeah, no, I could. It's the cultural shock. I've never actually experienced it, but I'd like to. I really want to experience the world, anything, even if it's just going to Mexico or Jamaica. Or I'm gonna go to Europe too in the next few years for. I'm gonna do a road trip, just like kind of rent a car and drive to as many countries as I can. Just stay in a different place for a couple of days and experience that because I've always wanted to. But I think I'm gonna go to Disneyland first because I always got promised that as a kid, but never got to go. So now as a grown man, I'm going to go and go on all the fucking rides. I don't care.
You'll be your own childhood hero.
Oh yeah. Well, I am my old childhood hero.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It's all good. But yeah, I look forward to that.
Yeah, dude. What do you think that growing up, like you said, without money, do you think that did anything as far as your mindset today goes?
Of course. Because anything, not to say that I have a lot right now, but anything that I've earned for myself or have or gotten, it's all me. I've done everything, and I've kind of got a different mentality. I've never been handed anything, so I know what it's like to have to work for stuff if you want it. That's kind of also why I indulge right now in food, especially because you didn't get to eat fast food or go out for dinners all the time. So like now I try to eat as much as I can. It's like a dog. You just put all the food, like I never waste anything. Yeah. Just like the whole, not that I ever, like I wasn't to the degree of going hungry or anything, but it's just like certain luxuries, like going and eating at fancy places. It's just like, I kind of, and candy. I like candy. I like eating junk food because that was like, you don't get a lot of junk food when you got to focus on buying all the other stuff. But yeah, no, it definitely made a huge difference in the way I grew up and the way that I carry myself and how I treat others, and it has a huge impact. And I think that a lot of people benefit from hardship to different degrees. Not to say that people who grew up privileged can't be successful, but it's just like you kind of got that chip on your shoulder, and you yourself, as you were mentioning, came up from humble beginnings, we'll say. But yeah, man, no, it's all good. I love where I'm at, and I love where I'm going, and I wouldn't change anything from my upbringing because I wouldn't be who I am today. And yeah,
man, definitely. I think honestly, I'm very fortunate to have gone through hardship, like you had said there, right?
Yeah,
it's all about building a sort of mental powerhouse, so to speak.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of individuals, especially where we grew up, multi-million-dollar neighborhood in Season, right? Who just didn't necessarily have to struggle. And today, they might not be going towards a path that puts them in a place financially where they're ahead and ready for retirement, because truthfully, that's something that they've never had to think about, right?
Yeah.
So when they tell them to start thinking about it, it's just not there. And I often see that with friends and stuff like that too. But I think, as far as all of that goes, I think a large part of it could be dealt with in school. I think that schooling growing up has a large part to do with it. I mean, even for you and myself, right? Like we never were ones who necessarily excelled in school.
Fuck, say the least.
I mean, PE class, we did pretty all right.
That's okay.
Yeah, but as far as everything else, so I think there needs to be a lot more done for students on a broader range to just help everyone in general. That didn't really answer anything, but I just kind of want to bring it up anyways. So
yeah, no, that's okay. I agree with that. There needs to be a change, and people need to not people, the school system. I've touched on this before, but the school system, they need to kind of expand what their idea of general education is, because you can't measure everybody by the same measuring stick because everybody's different. Not everybody's going to choose the same career path and want to be the same thing. So it's like, I don't know. I kind of like, I was in combined studies for my last year of school. And I mean, like, obviously a lot of the stuff is simplified. It's not quite as demanding as the regular program, but I do like that the direction that they're going in, where it's a small class size and you get lots of interaction with the teacher. Whereas where you have a big class size, it's a lot harder to answer everyone's individual questions because not everybody's going to be learning at the same pace. And there's so I could go on forever about this, but yeah, no, I agree. I agree that it starts with there, and who knows if it'll ever change, because I mean, it's easier said than done too, because I feel like you'll need more resources to be able to cater to everyone, and they only have a certain amount of space, and they're already trying to cram as many kids as they can in. And like, if you have to cut the class sizes in half, it means your facility has to be double the size. It's not the most practical thing, but at what point are we going to trade in being practical for working? Like, if it works, then it'll make the future better, and it'll be worth expanding and putting more money into it. But also, having said that, where's the money going to come from? It's like people are already complaining about fucking taxes and all that stuff. But what do you think would happen if you try to double all the facilities for schooling? We're like, where's that money going to come from? So I don't know.
There's the thing about that is there's so many, especially now that I'm in finance, like so many different politicians that are implementing these laws that do favor people of wealth, right?
Yes.
And they're not going around, they're like, hey man, here's a flyer, here's a new law that we updated, regarding this thing in regards to personal finance, right?
No.
If they are, then I'll add my name to the mailing list. But unfortunately they're not.
Yeah.
And I think a big part of schooling though is just when you're going through it, if they just sat people down instead of saying, hey, everyone can live their dreams, go be what you want. A lot of people get to their dreams. A lot of people, get their dream jobs. Sorry, not a lot, but, if you put your mind to it, then chances are you're going to be working in your desired field.
Yeah.
Or one similar to it. And oftentimes these people get into those fields and they go, hey, this is all right, we're going to work. But then their life outside of that might not be figured out. So I think if they just sat people down and said, all right, what type of lifestyle do you actually want to live? And they had you write these things down, oh, this is where I want to live. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to have. This is how much free time I want to have. All of these things. And then they started going, okay, well, based on that, here are actually careers that can provide that for you. Which one of these do you think would interest you? Okay, well, from that, what sort of subjects you need to start taking interest in, right?
Yeah.
I think just breaking it into that instead of like, oh, go for your dreams, and then like even you saw tons of teachers who were, in bad moods all the time because truth be told, their life outside of being a teacher, maybe even being a teacher, if they had you and me in their class, was probably not that great. I think just figuring that out for them, even there's a lot of adults that still haven't figured that out for themselves too, right? But I think putting a lot of emphasis on that, and I think things will change around. Like nowadays, you're seeing a ton more emphasis on mental health versus physical health, right? Even in blue collar jobs, which you never saw before, right? Like if you were like, oh, I'm somewhere to call and be like, oh, dude, I'm depressed, I'm not coming into work. You big dude. I don't know.
Fuck off.
With you, yeah. You're not sad today. Get your ass to work, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you're definitely seeing a lot more improvement, which I think is great. I think it's awesome. I think there needs to be way more done because I think mental health is half the battle. I think physical health is the other half. But a lot of people, struggle and get themselves into unhealthy situations with their bodies just because of mental health, right? Stress a lot of the time. But I don't know, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So, I mean, to touch on what you mentioned about in the past, what employers would say if you got someone calling in saying they're not feeling well mentally, or I'm depressed, or maybe they don't specify, maybe they just say I'm not feeling it, or I'm not feeling good. And they think, and the employer might think, just because you're physically okay, you should get your ass to work. What do you mean? Just like get over it. But it's like I'm fortunate enough to have been, I haven't experienced mental illness. I mean, I got really bad ADHD, but that's it. That's not really a mental illness. But I at my job, I know we get personal days, which are the same as sick days, and you don't have to specify what's wrong. You can just say, I'm not coming in today, and you can use a sick day or a personal day. And I think that that's a step in the right direction. Um, and it's kind of like the stigma around mental health. It's getting better. It's not perfect yet, and it might never be perfect, but it's definitely getting better. And I think that, especially for men, because I think that it's always been kind of just tough it out, toughen up, toughen up. But from some of my friends or people that I've spoken to, like it's not that easy. Just toughen up. It's like, because it's not, if it were that easy, everybody would do it. You just, it seriously though, like when you're fighting battles in your own head, the last thing you want to do is go to work and get yelled at or deal with customers or whatever your industry might be. And it's not, the only way that it'll change is over time, people bringing awareness to it and talking about it. Like that whole, I love the campaign that Bell has, the Bell Let's Talk. Like talk about it with somebody, whether that's whether you're the person that's battling the mental illness or you know somebody that's battling a mental illness. Like go initiate the conversation, ask someone if they're okay. Just ask, like, guys, girls, moms, dads, it doesn't matter how, teachers, like just talk about it. Don't be, people don't like talking today, maybe over the phone or texting, but like people are losing the ability to be able to communicate with each other in person. People are awkward. People get anxiety when their phone rings and they don't want to talk to someone on the phone or over a Zoom call. And it's not good, because that's only going to worsen any of the problems that were already there with people's anxieties. I keep using anxiety as an example because it's the easiest and most common, I would think. But yeah, I think it'll get there. I know there's also some people that abuse it too, because it's a thing, because you can take personal days. Like if somebody's just feeling lazy, they can call in too. But I don't want that to take away from the people that actually do need it and that do use it.
Well, I think a large part of that ties into like basing our workplace regulations. Like we're always going to be so close to the States in regards to workplace regulations, stuff like that. And like, if you got people like Jeff Bezos who are running workplaces in the ways that they want to, right, then probably not going to have favorable laws for employees. And I think because Canada is just, so close there, that I don't necessarily think things are going to improve drastically until things down there start improving drastically.
Sure.
But you start looking around the world, places like Italy, where they're legally entitled to 3 mental health days, a month. So, I think those kinds of places, they're definitely on the right track. But yeah, I don't know if these places like Merke I would consider them to be on the right track, so to speak. There's another interesting topic you brought up, but I can't slip in my mind at the moment. What was it on? No, you're gonna have to come back to me. That's
okay. I don't know, but I was just touching on the Bell Let's Talk and talking to people and stigma around it, and men specifically, and people abusing sick days.
Yeah, so actually that's what I was gonna say. So in regards to people, being afraid to talk, these anxieties and stuff like that, like, a lot of people, it's just getting over that initial fear. And a lot of people keep these fears in their head and they're saying, oh, I'm not going to do this because I'm scared. And, they're never really going to progress to who they could be and what they could do if they just keep following these fears. I mean, fears are great, don't hop off, a large building, things like that. But for smaller things like, don't answer that phone call, things like that. Yeah. I think people definitely need to, start looking into that and doing what they can. Even for myself, getting into welding, I was like, hey, welding's great, pays well. Let's look at underwater welding. And dude, I'm scared shitless of water. Like that's the biggest thing. Like
Yeah.
If you push me in water, I'm coming for your family. Like that's it.
Yeah.
But
Hey man, that's okay. That's
yeah, it's no, it's from my childhood. But anyways, I got to Thailand and I was like, you know what? I'm scared shitless of water. And I was like, but if I ever wanted kind of progress myself, and I just got to get over it. So I took a diving course. And in that diving course, I don't know if you got it, it's like for your PADI certification, just to be a diver. And they make you take off your regulator when you're 50 feet deep
mhm.
underwater.
Yeah.
And so I did that. And I'm not a flexible guy, and you're supposed to start reaching down from, down on your knees from your foot to your knee up to your hip and then reach back. But when I reached back, just that flexibility wasn't there. So I was like, oh shit, right?
Yeah.
I started taking in a bit of water, and then the guy came over and helped me out, right? But that's when I realized I was like, all right, man, my fear of water, it's definitely, one that should be there. And
Yeah.
I'm not going to be an underwater welder anytime soon. But at one point, I'm sure I'll hop back in the water and try to, hit that thing head on. But I think people, for myself in particular, that definitely helped me, in my own confidence. Um, just hopping into that water and just saying like, hey, I tried it.
Yeah.
It might have not been for me, but I tried it. Right.
Exactly. So yeah, you at least tried. You don't have to like everything, whether it's food and heights, water, whatever people may have an issue with trying. You just try it. If it's not dangerous, just try it. Like, don't jump in front of a car and don't drive 300 miles an hour if you don't have to. Like, don't. But something that's not going to hurt you, I think it's very healthy to do something that scares you every day to one degree or another. I know that's a cheesy saying, but it's true. And just like the more little battles you conquer, it makes the big ones not so big. And I think it's really important. I think everyone should, like I said, to any degree, whether it's something stupid or something that's crazy, because it's relative to everybody. Something that's stupid to someone might be like a huge fear or phobia to someone else. Like I'm not like, I mean, I don't necessarily want to go on a little floaty boat in the middle of the ocean, but I'm definitely not scared of water. But sometimes I don't like going out on a little boat where it's really deep and I can't see what's beneath me. Like if I'm in any type of boat with an engine or something like that, it's fine. It's just like I'm talking about like a pool floaty, like or a paddle board. It's just like that's more, I guess, fear of the unknown rather than the fear of water. But yeah, no, I think it's real important for people to get to try things that scared them. And like I said, you don't have to do it again. If you do it once, at least you can be like I don't like to hear I don't like that. But then you ask them if they've tried it and they say no. Like I always said I don't like oysters, but I never tried oysters. And then finally, after years of grinding, somebody finally convinced me to try oysters and I tried it. And I mean, I don't hate it, but I don't love it. Like, would I eat them if they're there? Yeah. But would I go and spend my money and order them? Probably not. But at least I know that now. At least I can confidently say yes or no. Um, but yeah.
Yeah, man, definitely. I think in regards to fears, just hopping back on it, I think everyone's scared of things, myself in particular, like, um, you know, I'm sure you probably or might have known I've definitely done some stupid things in vehicles, right? But like that fear was still there initially, and still would be for certain things.
Of course.
But it was just kind of like pushing that limit and over time getting by that limit. And, sometimes bad things do happen, obviously. But I think once you kind of gotten over that hump and you really start getting that adrenaline going, right?
Yeah.
Like, dude, popping a wheelie on the highway on your motorcycle, solid feeling. Like, I
Yeah.
love it. But, would I recommend it to everyone? I don't know about that. There's other people I know who've definitely done stupid things in vehicles. And, but on that note, do you think that like laws here in regards to like motor vehicle act, do you think that they're pretty harsh or do you think they're pretty, all right?
Um, I think that strictly for highways, I think that for highways, we should kind of look at what they've got going on in Europe, Germany more specifically, and kind of look at either an increase in speed limit or abolishing it altogether, because I don't necessarily think that the speed's the problem. I think that people zigzagging through lanes is very dangerous, but I think if they policed um, people driving recklessly rather than driving fast, because I think that there is a safe way to drive fast, where if you're driving fast to pass, you go in the left lane, and if you're driving slow, you go in the right lane. Um, because I don't know, I think speed limits are stupid on the highway. Nobody listens to them anyways, and as long as the road conditions are kept good, because like the Autobahn I use as that for an example is also one of the best maintained highways in the world. Like I know if they have any type of chip or anything in the highway, they'll shut it down and fix it right away and then open it back up. So it's always like pristine. So, and I haven't actually looked at statistics for accidents there, but I'm pretty sure that there are less than here. I think that because I know people that have gone to Germany and they say that there aren't any speed limits, but they're very strict with the lane thing. So like if you're not going up to the speed, you'll get pulled over and ticketed for being in the left lane. Like you get the fuck out of the way, because the people that are going fast are going to go and they don't want to slow down and brake and accelerate, because that's when accidents happen. Like when you're just cruising, you're all good, but like when you have to move out of the way and all that stuff, that's where things kind of get a little bit dicey. But as far as the other motor vehicle laws and stuff, I think that the texting and driving ones are right where they need to be. I think that's stupid. I mean, a lot of cars nowadays have Bluetooth functions, so like I can text and drive without touching my phone or looking at my phone. I press the button on the steering wheel and Siri fucking talks to me and I tell her what to say and then she texts it to me. So I mean, like I know not everybody has that technology available to them yet. It's coming and technology trickles down, so eventually everyone's car is going to have that, even if it's an older car. So I think that that's a big one, because I think texting and driving is just as bad as drunk driving. Because like when you're drunk driving, like at least you're looking at the road sometimes. When you're texting and driving, you're not looking. You can't avoid what you can't see. So I don't think. Sorry.
You think people with speech impediments then should be like allowed to text and drive? Because someone with a lisp might not be able to like speak as clearly to Siri as you would.
I don't think that they should be allowed to. I just think that's one of those unfortunate things where it's not fair, but it's the way it is. Like yeah. You can't just because that's a good example though. But I don't. It sucks, but you know, it's like, what are you going to do? Because you can't text and drive, and if you're just like blind people can't drive. Blind people can't. That's a stupid question. No. Deaf people can drive, I think, but they just have to have like stickers on their car that say driver's deaf and shit, just so you don't like lay on your horn expecting him to notice you.
Yeah. I don't think there's any weird regulations for deaf people. But yeah, I think there's like a lot of laws, like you said, that could be changed. Now that I have a bike, like one of them, for example, like lane filtering.
Yes.
Could very easily be implemented, but isn't. And that would save a lot of traffic, which in turn would reduce pollution, right? So I think that would be step in the right direction. I think once you get to these higher speeds, people are getting to places more quickly, maybe not utilizing as much fuel. And even another thing that they do in Europe, since you were talking about it, is that trucks, like large trucks, they're actually not allowed to go on highways as fast as these other cars, right? Like they have lower speed limits. So I think cars that are properly equipped to actually go fast, I don't know why there would be a reason why they wouldn't be allowed to, go a bit faster. I could see for other drivers, don't make it a large gap.
Yeah.
If a car can stop in a quarter the distance of another vehicle, then I don't really see a massive issue.
Yeah.
There. You're assuming that the driver has good reaction speed and stuff like that,
or they shouldn't be driving.
Yeah, exactly. I think another thing too, though, is like you got to hop on like a rally safety course, for example. I went and did rallying in the UK, and you take one of these safety courses, and it's like $200 to $300 for the day. Versus over here, the closest one we have, I think, is Dirtfish, which is in Seattle, and that's like, $800 to $1,000 a day for just like a learning
Yeah,
course.
not practical.
No, no,
No.
not for anyone. So I think putting into play, some of these courses that can help people learn how to drive, so to speak, then will improve things for everyone greatly, right?
Yeah.
You think that um, I know it's been talked about before. In Top Gear, I heard it. Like, do you think that the car model that people drive, like, do you think it plays into them being a bad driver? Like, when you see like a Corolla on the road, you're like, uh-oh, I don't know about this.
I mean, I have my own judgments, and I don't know if they're necessarily fair for all of them, but I definitely do. I mean, there's also a lot of stupid people that drive cars that they shouldn't be driving. And there's inexperienced people. Like, I always cringe when I see end drivers driving $500,000 cars. Like, I know that they're a lot easier to drive nowadays. Like, a Lamborghini of today isn't like a Lamborghini from the 90s. It's like it was for lack of a better term, it was a man's car back then, just because the clutch pedal was all stiff and you had to change the gear, and that was stiff, and the power steering was shit, and it was too much power and rear wheel drive. So it was like, if you didn't know what you were doing and you weren't physically built enough, you couldn't drive them. But nowadays, it's even like a Lamborghini Aventador is, you can drive it in automatic, and it's got a backup camera, and it's got sensors, and it's got all these nice little things, and it's comfortable. So they are a lot easier to drive than they used to be, but still, I think there should be rules for what caliber of vehicle you can drive with a basic driver's license. I think that there should be further requirements and education for people that want to drive past. Like, I know for motorcycles, they go by CC. I think that there should be a similar rule or law with vehicles. So like, you should be perfectly entitled to, if you're 18, but you're some prodigy that's just an amazing driver, sure, go for it. Drive whatever the hell you want. I don't care. But like, it shouldn't be just such a broad spectrum that just because it's got a wheel and two pedals, it's the same thing. Because it's really not. It's a mid-engine car and a front-engine car and a rear-engine car and all-wheel drive and two-wheel drive and manual, and like, they're all different. And all these, I think that you should have to pass a secondary driving test to drive manual. Like, I don't think that you should be allowed on the road by yourself if you're just learning manual for the first time, because I think it's dangerous. Like, it is basically like, I learned how to drive manual when I learned how to drive, period. So I kind of learned both at the same time. But I know there's a lot of people that, less now because more cars are going to the electronic gearboxes with the paddles, or even just a Tiptronic. So it is kind of I don't want to say dying technology, because I know enthusiasts will hate me for that, but it's less and less. You're seeing brand new vehicles being made with a standard manual gearbox. But yeah, no, I think that there should be different standards for different classes of vehicles and certification. Just whereas for a truck, you have to get your air brake license, or why wouldn't there be that type of standard for regular vehicles? But
dude, 100%. I think it's crazy that, as person who's never ridden a motorcycle before, I can go out and just hop on something that's like faster than like a Bugatti or anything, right? Just go out and purchase it.
Yeah.
Even myself, I got a 600cc sport bike for my first bike, which I know a lot of other people have as well. But like, man, I didn't know how to ride. And there was definitely times when, for example, one time I was riding out in Langley, and it was probably the first or second time that I had taken the bike out. And I meant to start braking, but the gas is right where the front brake is.
Oh no.
A bit of gas as I was squeezing the brake, and I started doing like a rolling burnout as I was going like 80.
Jeez.
And dude, I thought for sure up ahead, there's a red light. I was like, all right, I'm gonna die. And I actually went like halfway into the intersection.
Oh no.
But I was very lucky it wasn't busy. And then I was like, dude, like I was shaking, like I'm sure I shit myself at this point. But I walked back, and then I looked back, and this other guy thought I'd done it on purpose, and he's like, dude, fucking right on.
Yeah.
That was by accident. But I think that you can be put into a situation like that, just like goes to show that, there probably needs to be more stricter laws. And I'm not someone that's, necessarily scared to hop onto something, or
No, of course.
that's a bit more powerful. So even for someone, even so, my mechanical knowledge is probably greater than most. So I think that, even with those things in place, that you can just jump onto that. Like it's crazy. Like even for myself, I did exotic car detailing for a while there. I think you did it as well too, right?
Yeah, I did.
And yeah, driving some of those cars around, like I drove 911 that was had a single turbo.
Yeah.
It was like fully kitted out, like ready to race, and it made about 900 to the wheels. It was on semi slicks, and it was like December, and I had to go
Yeah.
to a customer's house and pick it up in
Oh no.
drive it back, right?
Yeah.
It was pissing rain, and like, dude, I was shitting myself.
Yeah.
I remember taking a corner and like the back end started sliding out, but I caught it. But a lot of people, they might not be able to catch that back end, and
No.
I'm sure you've seen it too,
Yeah,
like total supercars, stuff
definitely.
like that. But yeah, it's a scary situation, man. There
Yeah.
needs to be, I think, a bit more, like you said, like at least a course that's like, all right, this guy can handle that, or this
Yeah.
guy, sorry, man, try again.
Exactly. Just basic. Even no, I think it should be a practical test, not just a written test. I don't think there needs to be a written test because the rules are the same for the road, but I think a practical test for sure. Just like the basics of it. Like you said, catching when you start sliding and stuff. Like it's not like my mom's not going to be able to do that. She'll total it. She'll be in the fucking pole. Like she has a driver's license. She's been driving for 30 years now, almost, I guess. Yeah. But she has no business driving anything more than like a Corolla or whatever. I don't know. I don't even know what she drives right now, but you know what I mean? Like she shouldn't, but she has the license to. Like my mom can drive a Lamborghini if she had the money to buy one and wanted to, but like, no, it shouldn't happen.
Dude, even my parents, they have like a 2015 Evo, and
Yeah.
my mom's 66, so she's not one that's like dropping gears and
Yeah.
all
Of
this stuff.
course
But I
not.
tried to get her. I was like, all right, so let's put the revs up, let's get it going. And she got it going in first, and she's just like launched it, and she's going, and then I was like, "Hey, don't shift, just keep going." She's like, "Keep going," and I was like, "Yeah, keep going." And she keeps going up with the RPMs, and then she gets to like 7,000. She's like, "What do I do?" I was like, "Shift. You're just redlining it. Like, just shift, right?"
Yeah.
But yeah, I think if there maybe just like a slight little bit more education from driver's class and stuff like that, then people wouldn't be put into these situations. You think that in regards to electric cars and stuff like that, they'll start having heavier regulations or easier regulations for driving?
Mm, I don't know. Cause like I said earlier, the AI I think is going to take over eventually. I don't know when, but it will. So I don't know. I feel like it'll be more strict regulations for the manufacturers rather than the drivers because it's on them to make sure the shit's safe. Because if you're coming out saying your cars can drive themselves and I run over a fucking kid in a school zone because I'm using your AI, like, is it my fault or is it the manufacturer's fault? Is there a because I know for a lot of the automatic driving things, if it's kind of like cruise control where you touch the brake and it gives you control back. But even so, what if it doesn't give you control back? What if it just has a malfunction? Like it's who's held accountable for that? So I think it's more on the manufacturer rather than the operator when it comes to AI. But that's a lot. I don't know if every manufacturer is going to be willing to stick their neck out. That Elon guy's crazy. But I don't think Ford or GM is going to be coming out anytime soon saying, hey, we have cars that can drive themselves. Cause like, the lawsuits you're going to get if that doesn't work out. And if you don't have the technology and you're saying that you do, and like just because 100 tests work or 1,000 tests work, what if the 1,001st doesn't? Then again, it's going to blow up in your face. So it's going to take a while, but I think it's inevitable.
Yeah, I think so. I think in regards to, I think the people that are driving the vehicles too, it does make a difference. Like, do you remember there was a massive recall for Chevrolet for the keys? Cars
Yes.
were driving that were just off. So that was due to the fact that these people had large amounts of weight on their keychain. And you think it's pretty logical. You're like, hey man, should I have 10 pounds on my keychain? while it's in the ignition of a vehicle? Probably not.
Yeah.
Okay. But like the fact that they have to like, make a recall for this obviously shows that there are people that are doing these things.
Mhm.
So I don't know, with Tesla, if there'd be as many people who are part of their target audience that would kind of think that way. But yeah, these people, even Tesla, dude, crazy company. Like, I don't know if you're aware or not, but Elon Musk talks about it in interviews, and he's like, dude, Tesla's been on the brink of bankruptcy like multiple times. And you look at the value of them now, like more valuable than every automotive manufacturer put together, right?
Yeah.
So it's crazy though, to see someone like that, who has built all these massive businesses time and time again. And it goes to show, it's like, dude, what's the difference between him versus an original, like just a normal person?
Sure.
What separates them?
Yeah. Drive. Just,
Yeah.
I think it's like, because I know that not everyone's built equal and not everybody's got the same IQ or not everybody has the same financial backing. But like, I think that if you really want to do something one way or another, you can do it. That's not to say everyone can be a billionaire, because not everyone can be a billionaire, because not everybody's willing to sacrifice. But I think if you're willing to sacrifice and you're willing to take chances and you're willing to do things that make you uncomfortable, I think that you can accomplish anything that you want to do. I'm a firm believer in that. I'm well on my way to doing that. I don't even know 100% what I want to do yet, but I know that anything that I try to do, I crush. So it's just, you got to try and you got to want to do it. And I'm happy for you that you kind of find an avenue that makes you happy and makes you feel fulfilled, and as well as doing something that will be lucrative for you as well.
Yeah, man. I think for, finding something that's right for you, you have to kind of look past what do you want. And when you get into a place where you're helping other people, on a daily basis, then, and as long as your bills are paid, you got to
Yeah,
that type of thing, then you're going to be in a
of course.
happier place. Like, sure, I had lots of opportunities to make, great money with welding. But I remember one of the best feelings I had was telling this guy, and he was making like 30 grand a year, and he just had a kid, and he's looking at it, he's like, oh man, this is terrible. My kid's going to go back to this. And I was like, hey man, I built you this strategy and things like that to achieve your goals financially. And just to see his face, to find out like, hey, your daughter's looking at like, having $50,000 when she wants to go to university by the time
Yeah,
she's 18. And just being able to tell that to someone and look at the reaction on their face is just, I
it's
don't know.
priceless.
Yeah, dude, they're like, I don't care if I make less money doing this. Like, I know that I'm implementing such a massive change in their life that
Sure.
it's far greater, right? And when you start looking at helping other people versus yourself, then you're going to start seeing greater things happening for you too in life.
100%. Well, thank you very much for joining me today, Connor. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure everyone else has learned a lot. And I appreciate you taking your time. And I wish you the best. And I'm sure that we're going to be in touch. And I'm sure that you'll probably come back on in the future. And we'll touch base and see where you're at. But yeah, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And nice talking to you, bro.
Yeah.